Hey everybody, Chuck Barone. It is Thursday, March the 28th, 2024. Happy to be here coming to you from a secure location. And we have a lot of stuff to talk about today. What a huge day, lots of stuff going on. Before I get rolling though, let me take a half a second and welcome everybody to the show. As always, thank you guys for your support. You guys being here means the world to us. We appreciate you guys. All right, so let's talk about these markets today. Lots of stuff to go over. Now, as we know, tomorrow is the really, really big day. Tomorrow, we're going to get inflation numbers. We're going to get consumer spending. We're going to get consumer income. These are all huge, huge numbers. The funny thing is, stock market's going to be closed tomorrow. Tomorrow's Good Friday, religious holiday, market closed. Bond market will be closing early. We're still going to do a show tomorrow just to go over the numbers. Might be a shorter show than usual. We're just going to go over the inflation numbers and the rest of the data that comes in tomorrow, just to give you guys a heads up on what it means going into Monday when the markets will actually trade on that data. So as a result, today's day was kind of a weird day. The market's kind of holding their breath today. Not a lot happening in these markets. So let's go over the results. Stock market ends up mixed, not a lot happening. The Dow up actually by 47 points, sitting at 39,807. Great number for the Dow. The Nasdaq falls 20 points, sitting at 16,379. The S&P, another new record for the S&P, up just 5 points. But when you're going up from yesterday's record, that creates a new record, 5,254 on the S&P 500. So the broader market was up. The Dow, the concentrated 30 were up, but the tech-heavy Nasdaq down. Honestly, guys, take the day with a grain of salt. It's everything now comes down to the news we get tomorrow. The bond market today also kind of a weird day in the bond market. The 10-year up just 1 basis point, sitting at 4.20%. The 2-year climbed 6 basis points, sitting at 4.63%. So the spread widening, we still got that inversion. Every day, a new record, going on almost 2 years of an inverted yield curve. Just bananas, man. Haven't seen an inverted yield curve this length since way back in 1978. Wow, it's like 45, 46 years ago. So it's been quite a while since we've seen this. And we know what happened back in those days, right? We know that there was a pretty nasty recession and about 5 years of economic turmoil after that. So we'll see where this one leads. Hopefully it won't be as bad. The dollar today, surprisingly up small, up 11 basis points, 104.54. You guys remember, it wasn't that long ago. The dollar was 103 falling. Now rallying back up. I thought it might get back above 104. Now it looks like it might actually climb back up above 105, depending on the data. So the dollar holding its own, still pretty strong position. Precious metals, even in the face of a stronger dollar, rally up today. Gold climbs $25.60, now sitting at $2,220 for an ounce of gold. A great number for gold. Silver rallies up 24 cents. $24.83 for an ounce of silver. Now, I got to say, I'm a little bit disappointed by silver. I thought that for sure the rally would come in silver because it's just more attractive to the small guy, the little guy who wants to invest in metals. So hopefully, I think, and I believe silver will start to catch up soon because this spread's just a little too big. Too many ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. That number is usually much more compressed than it is now. So we'll see if silver can get a little bit of a rally. I believe it will. Oil today up again. Rallies up $1.65, sitting at $83 even for a barrel of West Texas Intermediate. This is a big jump and a disappointing one. I really believe that oil was starting to settle down, falling back down into the trough. It seems to be most comfortable between $70 and $75 per barrel. I guess I might have to look at readjusting my numbers. but I always wait for about 30 to 60 days of a breakout to see if it really has any legs. Because, sometimes they go up, but it comes right back down just as fast. And we're going to see what happens with oil here. Bitcoin, wow, another great day for Bitcoin. Rallies up $1,989, now sitting at 70,805 on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a crazy one, guys, because I know, and I think in the group that watches these videos is pretty much a split. There are a lot of people that are real believers in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. A lot of people that are very, very, very skeptical, if not downright negative. You can't deny these numbers, guys. And these EFTs obviously are having a big effect on these cryptos. I don't think that this is the end, it's just the beginning. Now we have a vehicle to actually invest in cryptocurrencies that's not one of these weird FTXs or Binances or whatever. And I think that's going to add to the attractiveness of it. And I think you're just seeing the beginning of what's going to happen with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. All right, so let's talk about the news we got today, because there was just a shit ton of it today, guys. First thing is I just want to mention opening day for Major League Baseball today. Baseball season upon us. That means the dog days of summer are coming soon. But the good news is right after that comes football season, so I'm glad baseball's getting started up. Back to the news. The big deal today, Sam Bankman Fraud, the nemesis to cryptos, the leader of the collapsed FTX exchange, gets sentenced today for fraud, gets sentenced to 25 years in the slammer, and he's ordered to pay $11 billion in restitution. I'm going to guess that might take a little longer than his 25-year sentence to pay back. Now, he was convicted of fraud and conspiracy to defraud in the FTX collapse. You guys might remember, some may not. FTX is once one of the biggest crypto exchanges in the world. It collapsed in November of 2022. And as they looked into the collapse, because they couldn't, people were trying to redeem for money, couldn't get their money out. When they looked into the collapse, they found that $8 billion had vanished. $8 billion or more. They just round it to 8 billion. Now, what Bankman Fraud was doing is he was taking client funds and transferring them to their trading unit, their sister company. And these funds were then used to do high-risk trading, to do venture capital shots, personal loans, political donations, and to fund Bankman Fraud's amazing lifestyle in the Bahamas. He had the super fancy penthouse, all the very, very best of it in the world. Well, now he gets to pay the price for that. Prosecutors calling it one of the biggest frauds in history. This disaster, the bummer about FTX was it really hurt the whole crypto market. Because at that point, there were no ETFs. And if you wanted to invest in crypto, the vehicle for it was these weird exchanges like FTX. A lot of people were already uncomfortable putting their money into these unknowns. When this company vanishes along with $8 billion and several others, okay, it kind of put a damper on people, the newer people, maybe guys like me a little bit older, from getting involved in these cryptos. So hopefully now that this is behind us and we have these ETFs, the cryptocurrencies can go forward and do what they're supposed to do and be a normal investment vehicle. All right, quick shots today. There's a lot of stuff. I was reading an article that made me chuckle. You guys have heard of Susie Orman. She's like, one of those finance gurus. Even she getting jacked up by inflation. Now, I was reading this article. She has a condominium in Florida, which, as you guys know, is having a big trouble with insurance down there. Insurance people don't want to insure properties. They're bailing out of the state. She has a 2,100 square foot condo there in Florida that she got a quote for. They quoted her $28,000 for the year for insurance on that condo. Guys, that's more than $2,000 a month just to have homeowners insurance. Now, the interesting thing is this is a condo, and most condos, when you're insuring them, okay, the association pays for the outside. So the roof and the walls and everything on the outside of the building is covered by the association typically. The walls and everything in are then covered by your own homeowners insurance, your condo policy, which are typically significantly less money than a regular homeowner's insurance on a single family residence. So a gigantic number like that, 2,100 square foot condo, that kind of policy should be $600. Now, to see $28,000 for homeowners, I don't know how anybody can afford to live in Florida anymore. Okay, more news. Fourth quarter GDP revised higher. Go figure. Usually it comes down quite a bit, rising from 3.2% to the final number of 3.4%. They also announced that for the year 2023, GDP rose for the year 2.5%, a decent number. And not unbelievable like this 3.4 is. Well, maybe not unbelievable, but close to unbelievable, right? Big stock market rally we've been watching with the S&P rising pretty much to records every day, catapults the wealth of the top 1% in our country over $44 trillion. So 1% of the population of the U.S. now controls $44 trillion in wealth. Must be nice to be a 1%er. The University of Michigan comes out today. We were expecting that. Rises. Pretty surprising rise from 76.5 up to 79.4. Pretty good jump there. Consumers bringing down their inflation expectations, believe inflation will continue to moderate. They're expecting an inflation rate of 2.8% at the end of the year. Well, guys, that's not much different from where it is right now. Core PCE last month was 2.8%. So I got to ask you this. If that's the belief, how many rate cuts you think we're going to get, right? Because one would think that inflation is going to be down into the kill zone of 2% or less before we get those rate cuts. So if they're expecting it to be 2.8% at the end of the year, pretty much where it is now, and it is 2.8% at the end of the year, how does the Fed cut rates there? Interesting, right? Existing home sales, another report we were expecting today, jump, actually surprisingly 1.6%. A little bit more inventory on the market and existing homes, buyers and investors snapping up those properties instantly. Bummer is year over year, existing home sales still down 7%. So existing home sales, I've been telling you guys, being in this mortgage industry, existing home sales suck and are not going to get better until rates change or people get sick of paying 3% for their mortgage, which is never going to happen. We get the big day tomorrow, guys. We've been talking about it all week. We know that the Fed is, they're paying real close attention. We're going to get that PCE number. Here's what they're expecting. They're expecting 2.5% PCE inflation in the top line. They're expecting 2.8% on the core number. So basically unchanged from the last reading. It was 2.3% on the top. So they're expecting top line inflation to rise one basis point. They're expecting the core rate to stay the same. It's going to be fascinating to see how these numbers actually turn out and how the market reacts to those numbers, because I got to say, I got a little bit of skepticism here of these PCE numbers. And after reading the article, and we talked about on the show how they're calculating this inflation completely differently than they did back in the day, the cost of money not involved in that calculation anymore. Well, you know what I mean, guys, right? Consumer sentiment, which is part of the University of Michigan index, climbs to a 2.5-year high. Now, the number we talked about just a second ago, 79.4%, is a nice improvement from the 76 it was. Here's the problem. Prior to the pandemic and all the crazy that came with it and followed, U of M sentiment number was 101. So it's still down pretty dramatically from that number, right? Top economist, this was an interesting article. Top economist was saying that the Fed, because of the way they've got their rates plotted out, is actually expecting a recession this year. He was saying that typically in a soft landing, the Fed only has to cut rates by 75 basis points to get what they want. The Fed's showing 150 basis points this year. That's 3 half-point cuts, guys. I got my doubts about that, right? But they're signaling 150 basis points in cuts. That means, guys, that the Fed is expecting a recession this year or something near a recession, and the economy is going to need rescuing with rate cuts. I've been talking about the mixed signals we've been getting on these markets for a long time. One day everything's great, the next day everything's horrible. You're getting these, completely contradictory ideas. The Fed talking up the economy at the same time, their rate plot showing that they're expecting a recession in the same economy. I guess, there goes the idea of transparency and honesty from our elected officials, right? But anyway, guys, that's it for today. We will be doing a show tomorrow to talk about PCE, consumer spending, which is also going to be a big one, expected to be up. Consumer income also expected to be up. Both of those inflationary. It'll be interesting to see how all those numbers actually come out. 5:15 a.m. tomorrow morning is the time they're going to give this PCE number. I'll be sitting in front of the boob tube watching it. And of course, we'll bring you guys the news you need. Anyway, guys, again, that's it for the day. We appreciate you guys being here. If you could, please hit the like button. It helps the algorithms around, gets our video in front of a few more people. Hit me up in the comments with your questions, funny stuff, and anything you want. I'll be on there today conversing with you guys. Always a pleasure, guys. We appreciate your support. We'll be back tomorrow to bring you the news you need. Until then, guys, take care. Thanks.